A loud, metallic whirring noise interrupted the still morning of the Serengeti National Reserve. Maya Krishnan sighed, adjusting her ranger hat and muttering under her breath about how mornings were supposed to be quiet. She squinted up at the enormous alien ship, hovering over the landscape like a particularly ugly storm cloud. "Can I help you?" she called out, hands on her hips. The ship's metallic sheen rippled, and a projection shimmered into existence before her, a tall, insectoid alien with too many legs, not enough neck, and a face that seemed to have been designed by someone who hated the concept of symmetry. It wore what looked like ceremonial armor, made of glowing, shifting tiles. "Greetings, Earth Primitive," the alien began in a voice that sounded suspiciously like a blender full of gravel. "I am Grand Strategist Klexthor Zil of the mighty Drimban hegemony. You may now commence quaking in fear." "Uh-huh," Maya said, unimpressed. "Nice to meet you, Klexi. What do you want?" Klexthor twitched, clearly unprepared for such a casual response. "It is Klexthor, and I am here to deliver an ultimatum. Surrender your world immediately, or face annihilation." "Wow, okay," Maya said, taking a sip from her travel mug. "Big ask for 8 a.m. What's your beef with Earth?" "Our conquest is not personal," Klexthor said, his mandibles clacking. "The Drimban hegemony seeks only to expand our glorious dominion. Your civilization shall join the others we have subjugated or be obliterated as an example to all." "Yeah, I'm going to pass on the subjugation part," Maya said, gesturing vaguely to the hippo pond behind her. "But you're welcome to chat with the locals about it." Klexthor followed her gesture and froze. His bulbous compound eyes locked on the massive form of Mr. Nibbles, a 3,000-kilogram hippopotamus currently submerged in the muddy water, occasionally flicking his ears like he owned the place. "That creature," Klexthor said, his voice quivering, "slightly, is your local population?" "One of them," Maya said with a shrug. "We've got plenty more where he came from." Klexthor turned back to her, regaining a measure of his arrogance. "Your attempt to deceive us is amusing, Earthling. The Drimban hegemony will prove its superiority with a demonstration. We shall face your champion in combat." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You want to fight a hippo?" "We shall pit one of our finest bioengineered war beasts against your so-called champion. If we are victorious, you will submit to our rule without resistance." "Sure, why not?" Maya said, as though aliens proposing combat trials was an everyday annoyance. "Give us a week to get ready. Prepare your primitive beast," Klexthor said ominously. "Your defeat shall be swift." And with that he disappeared in a flash of light, leaving behind a faint smell of ozone and too much confidence. Maya turned back to Mr. Nibbles, who was now chewing lazily on what may have been a large branch or a small tree. "Well, buddy," she said, "looks like you're up." The next week passed in a whirlwind of hilarity, as humanity, united for the first time in millennia, collectively agreed to bet the fate of the planet on the most dangerous animal they had access to. Maya, along with her perpetually nervous assistant Jerry, set about training Mr. Nibbles. "Do you think he understands what's at stake?" Jerry asked one afternoon, watching the hippo demolish an entire watermelon in a single bite. "Nope," Maya said cheerfully, "but that's the beauty of it. He's not fighting for Earth, he's just doing what hippos do, which is murder everything that annoys them." On the appointed day, a massive arena materialized in the middle of the Serengeti, built by the Drimban from shimmering alien metals. The stands were filled with holographic projections of alien dignitaries, all eager to witness Earth's humiliation. The Drimban war beast was unveiled with great fanfare, a towering, six-legged monstrosity covered in pulsating bioluminescent armor. It had claws like scythes, teeth like serrated steel, and eyes that glowed a menacing shade of crimson. The crowd roared. Maya led Mr. Nibbles into the arena, looking supremely unconcerned. The hippo, for his part, seemed more focused on locating the nearest patch of grass than on his grotesque opponent. Klexthor's voice boomed from the sky. "Behold, Earthlings, the apex of Drimban bioengineering. Witness your champion's inevitable destruction." Maya yawned. "Cool story, Klexi. Let's get this over with." The gong sounded. The Drimban war beast charged, its every step shaking the ground. Mr. Nibbles stood still for a moment, contemplating his life choices. Then, with the speed of a freight train fueled by rage and bad decisions, he launched himself at the oncoming creature. The fight was over in less than 30 seconds. Mr. Nibbles, fueled by territorial instinct and pure hippo spite, tore through the war beast's armor like it was wet cardboard. The alien crowd went silent as their apex predator was reduced to a twitching heap. Maya gave a small, smug wave to Klexithor's projection. "Looks like Earth wins. Better luck next time." Klexithor stared, mandibles agape. "What manner of nightmare creature is this?" "Just your average hippo," Maya said, patting Mr. Nibbles on the head as he grunted, seemingly unimpressed by his own victory. And with that, the tide of the invasion began to turn. Not with advanced technology or cunning strategy, but with the raw, ridiculous power of Earth's most underestimated weapon. For a moment there was silence, one of those rare and precious moments when even the universe seemed too stunned to comment. Then chaos erupted. The alien dignitaries filling the holographic stands began squawking, screeching, and clicking in various tones of outrage and panic. Klexthor's image flickered and reappeared in front of Maya, his normally metallic tone now drenched in indignation. "This is unacceptable. There must be some kind of mistake," he sputtered, flailing his spindly arms. "No Earth creature could defeat the Drimban apex predator. That thing is an anomaly." Maya, who had her hands buried in her pockets and was chewing gum, like she had all the time in the world, shrugged. "I told you he'd win. You're the one who insisted on the fight. I warned you about hippos." Klexthor's mandibles twitched furiously. "This is not over, Earthling. The hegemony will not be defeated by some primitive swamp pig." At that exact moment, Mr. Nibbles, as if sensing the insult, let out a loud, guttural grunt and opened his mouth wide in an aggressive yawn. Klexthor flinched. "We demand a rematch," the alien roared, trying to regain some semblance of authority. "Oh yeah?" Maya said, cocking an eyebrow. "And what exactly are you going to throw in this time? Another one of your bioengineered terrors? Maybe something with wings this time, or bigger teeth?" Klexthor bristled. "The hegemony has far greater weapons at its disposal than what you've seen so far. We will select another champion, and when your abomination falls, you will finally bow before our might." Sure, Maya said, nodding along sarcastically. "Pick whoever or whatever you want, but you'd better hope they've been doing some serious cardio, because old Nibbles here isn't going anywhere." With that, she turned and began walking Mr. Nibbles off the battlefield. The hippo waddled alongside her, utterly unbothered by the alien uproar he'd caused. As they left, Maya shot a grin over her shoulder at Klexthor's furious projection. "See you next week." Klexi. Back at the hastily assembled Earth Defense Headquarters, in a converted airport hangar, Maya's phone was blowing up. Calls from politicians, scientists, and, inexplicably, several Hollywood producers were coming in non-stop. Jerry, looking paler and more stressed than usual, was running back and forth with a clipboard, trying to manage the chaos. Maya?" he said, skidding to a stop in front of her. "The UN Secretary-General is on line 3. He wants to know if we're, weaponizing any other animals." Maya leaned back in her chair, boots propped up on the desk, and tossed a piece of apple into Mr. Nibbles's waiting mouth. "Tell him we're sticking with the hippo. Why mess with perfection?" "But what if they bring something bigger this time?" Jerry asked, wringing his hands. "What if it flies or shoots lasers? What if—" "Relax," Maya said, waving him off. Nibbles has got this. He's basically a tank wrapped in leather and bad attitude. Besides, it's not like the Drimban can read Wikipedia and figure out his weaknesses. Not that he has any. Jerry hesitated. Well, actually, about that. The internet's kind of freaking out. Someone posted the fight footage, and now there's this huge debate online about whether hippos are invincible or not. There's even a guy claiming they're vulnerable to bananas. Maya blinked. Bananas? Yeah, he says they're a psychological weak point. I think he's a conspiracy theorist. Okay, first of all, that's ridiculous, Maya said. Second of all, if the aliens want to start lobbing bananas at Nibbles, they're welcome to try. He'd probably just eat them and call it breakfast. Jerry didn't look convinced, but before he could argue further, the room's main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The holographic image of Klexithor appeared, his expression a mask of smug determination. "Earthlings," he began, his voice dripping with self-satisfaction. "The hegemony has chosen its next champion. Prepare yourselves for the arrival of the Yargath Titan, a creature so fearsome that even the stars themselves tremble before its wrath." "Sounds fun," Maya said, twirling a pen between her fingers. "What's it got? Claws, teeth, a bad attitude?" "You will find out soon enough," Klexithor sneered. "The challenge will take place in 2 days. Prepare your monstrosity if you dare." With that, the transmission cut off, leaving the room in tense silence. Jerry looked at Maya, wide-eyed. What if this Yargath Titan is, like, an actual Titan? What if it's the size of a building? "Then Nibbles will just have to eat a bigger lunch," Maya said calmly. "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it." 2 days later, the Drimban arena reappeared, this time with even more fanfare. Alien spectators packed the holographic stands, and Maya could hear snippets of their conversations through the translator systems. "Surely the Earth Beast cannot defeat the Yargath Titan. I heard it breathes fire and can crush moons. Did you see the footage of that hippo, though? Terrifying." Maya smirked to herself as she led Mr. Nibbles into the arena. This time, she'd outfitted him with a comically large cape that said "Earth's Champion" in bright, glittery letters. He didn't seem to notice or care. The Yargath Titan was unveiled with dramatic flair. A massive, spider-like creature with glowing green eyes, venom-dripping fangs, and a body bristling with spikes. It towered over the battlefield, its legs clicking ominously against the ground. The alien crowd cheered wildly. Maya yawned. The gong sounded, and the Yargath Titan lunged forward, its mandibles snapping. Mr. Nibbles, who had been chewing on a clump of grass, looked up, unimpressed. Then, in a move that defied both physics and common sense, he charged straight at the spider, jaws wide. The Titan reared back, venom spraying from its fangs, but Mr. Nibbles plowed through the attack like it was a mild inconvenience. He bit down, hard on one of the creature's legs, snapping it clean off with a sickening crunch. The Titan screeched and tried to retreat, but Nibbles was relentless. Within minutes, the alien champion was a crumpled heap of twitching limbs. The crowd went silent again. Maya dusted her hands off and looked up at Klexithor's horrified projection. "2 for 2, she said with a grin. "You sure you wanna keep this up, buddy?" The silence that followed Mr. Nibbles' second decisive victory was somehow louder than the cheering that had come before it. The holographic alien dignitaries, previously smug and self-assured, now seemed to be collectively experiencing a sort of existential crisis. Klexithor's projection, hovering over the battlefield like a poorly designed video game boss, twitched as he tried to process the humiliation of yet another failure. "This," he hissed, his mandibles clacking in barely contained rage. "This defies logic. That thing cannot possibly—" Maya interrupted him with a loud slurp from her water bottle. "You keep saying impossible, Klexi, but here we are. Maybe it's time you start asking yourself if your apex technology just isn't up to snuff." Klexithor's compound eyes narrowed to slits. You mock the hegemony at your peril, Earthling. Yeah, Maya said, waving him off. Big scary empire, yada yada. Look, are we done here? Because Nibbles needs his afternoon nap, and I'm not sticking around just to listen to you rant. The hologram flickered ominously. You think you've won, but this is far from over. The Drimban hegemony does not retreat. We adapt. And when we return, we will bring a champion that even your abomination cannot defeat. Sure, Maya said, casually throwing an apple into Mr. Nibbles's open mouth. You do that. See you next week. The projection fizzled out, and the arena began to disassemble itself, the alien technology collapsing into sleek, glowing panels that vanished one by one. The crowd of dignitaries disappeared as well, though not before several of them could be heard muttering in their native languages about how unfair it all was. Maya led Mr. Nibbles back to the transport truck waiting at the edge of the field, where Jerry stood pacing nervously. They're gonna escalate, he said the moment Maya approached. You know they're gonna escalate, right? They're not gonna take this lying down. Good, Maya said, patting Mr. Nibbles on the side as he clambered into the truck bed. Maybe they'll finally send something interesting. Jerry gaped at her. Interesting? Maya, they're gonna send a death machine. They're gonna send something designed specifically to counter a hippo. Let them try, Maya said with a shrug. Nibbles will just counter their counter. That's how this works. Jerry shook his head. I can't believe you're this calm. The entire fate of the planet is riding on this. Yeah, and so far, we're 2-0. Lighten up, Jerry. You're going to give yourself an ulcer. Back at the makeshift headquarters, the mood was a mix of celebration and anxiety. News of Mr. Nibbles' victories had gone viral, and the internet was now flooded with memes, fan art, and increasingly absurd conspiracy theories about the hippo's true nature. One particularly popular thread suggested that Nibbles was actually an ancient Earth god, awakened to protect the planet in its time of need. Maya found it hilarious. Jerry, not so much. We need to start thinking strategically, Jerry said, pacing back and forth in front of the giant screen that dominated the main room. What if they bring a flying creature next time, or something with shields, or— Jerry, Maya said, cutting him off. You're overthinking this. Nibbles doesn't need a strategy. He's a hippo. His strategy is to bite, charge, and destroy anything in his way, and so far it's working. But what if— Before he could finish, the screen lit up with an incoming transmission. Klexthor's face appeared, looking more sour than ever. He wasn't even pretending to be smug anymore. His mandibles were set in a rigid scowl, and his compound eyes glowed faintly with frustration. Earthling, he said, his voice strained. The hegemony has devised its final test. The outcome of this challenge will determine whether your planet is spared or eradicated. Final test? Maya said, leaning back in her chair. Getting tired of losing, huh? This is no mere test of strength, Klexthor continued, ignoring her jab. We have engineered a champion that will exploit the very essence of your beast's weaknesses. A creature so advanced, so perfectly designed, that its victory is all but assured. Cool, Maya said. What's it called? Klexthor hesitated for a fraction of a second. The Omega Ravager. Maya snorted. Sounds edgy. Klexthor twitched. You will not be laughing when you see it. Can't wait, Maya said, cracking her knuckles. When and where? The challenge will take place tomorrow at dawn, Klexthor said, his voice dropping to a menacing rumble. Prepare yourself, Earthling. The hegemony will not tolerate another failure. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the room in uneasy silence. Jerry, who had been standing frozen throughout the exchange, finally spoke. The Omega Ravager? He said, his voice barely above a whisper. That doesn't sound good. Yeah, but it also sounds like something a teenager would name their pet lizard, Maya said, stretching lazily. I'm not worried. You should be, Jerry said, throwing his arms in the air. They've been losing for weeks. You think they're just going to send another overgrown bug? This thing's gonna be a monster. Good, Maya said, grinning. Nibbles loves monsters. The next morning, the arena materialized once again, but this time it was different. The structure was larger, more elaborate, and crackling with strange energy. The alien crowd was larger too, with more dignitaries, more spectators, and an unmistakable air of anticipation. The stakes had never been higher, and the tension was palpable. Maya led Mr. Nibbles into the arena, where the hippo promptly began sniffing the ground in search of something edible. She had given up on the idea of dramatic entrances. Nibbles had his own priorities, and showmanship wasn't one of them. Across the battlefield, a massive containment unit was slowly being lowered into place. The crowd fell silent as the unit's doors began to open, revealing the Omega Ravager. It was a hulking, multi-limbed nightmare, with a sleek, armored body that shimmered like black glass. Its eyes burned with an eerie blue light, and its claws glowed faintly with energy. It looked like someone had taken every terrifying predator in the galaxy, mashed them together, and then given the resulting abomination a bad attitude. The crowd roared as the creature stepped forward, its movements unnervingly smooth. Plexthor's projection appeared above the battlefield, his mandibles spread in a triumphant grin. "Behold," he announced, "the pinnacle of Drimban bioengineering. Your primitive beast will fall, and the hegemony will claim its rightful victory." Maya looked up at the projection and yawned. Yeah, we'll see." The gong sounded, and the Omega Ravager charged. It moved with shocking speed, a blur of claws, teeth, and glowing energy. The crowd erupted in cheers as it closed the distance, ready to tear Mr. Nibbles apart. But Nibbles didn't even flinch. As the Ravager lunged, the hippo sidestepped with surprising agility, then snapped his massive jaws around one of the creature's limbs. There was a sickening crunch, followed by an unearthly screech as the Ravager flailed wildly. The fight devolved into chaos. The Ravager attacked with everything it had, slashing, biting, and firing energy blasts, but Nibbles shrugged off the assault like it was a mild inconvenience. Every time the creature tried to gain the upper hand, the hippo countered with raw, unstoppable force. Within minutes, the battlefield was littered with pieces of the once mighty Ravager. By the time it was over, the alien crowd was utterly silent. Plexthor's projection flickered, his mandibles quivering as he stared at the carnage below. "Well," Maya said, brushing some dirt off her jacket, "I think that makes it 3-0. You want to call it quits, or should we keep embarrassing you in front of your friends?" The silence that followed Mr. Nibbles' destruction of the Omega Ravager was unlike any silence before it. It wasn't just the absence of noise. It was the stunned, collective realization of an entire intergalactic empire that their so-called apex creations were no match for one mildly irritable hippo. Plexthor's projection hung in the air, his mandibles twitching erratically as he struggled to find the words. Maya, of course, was unfazed. She leaned against the railing of the observation deck, chewing a piece of gum and twirling a stick in her hand, as if she were a bored coach watching an overachieving Little League team. Mr. Nibbles, for his part, had wandered to the far side of the battlefield and was now attempting to nap in a mud puddle. "This," Plexthor stammered, his normally haughty voice now cracking with frustration, "this is unacceptable, impossible, absurd." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You keep using those words, Clexy, but they're starting to lose meaning. Maybe you should just, I don't know, stop sending overpriced science projects to fight the murder cow." "He's not a cow," Jerry shouted from the sidelines, his voice tinged with the desperation of someone trying to cling to reality. "He's a hippopotamus." Tomato, Maya replied with a shrug. "Point is, you're not winning this one, buddy." Plexthor's image flickered erratically, his compound eyes glowing faintly as he visibly struggled to keep his composure. Finally, he let out a screeching sigh and raised one spindly arm. "Fine," he barked. "The hegemony acknowledges your peculiar champion's victory, But do not mistake this for submission, Earthling. The Drimban hegemony will not be humiliated like this. We shall return with reinforcements. Your entire planet will— Oh, for crying out loud, Maya interrupted, holding up a hand. Do you ever stop monologuing? Listen, Clexy, it's over. You lost. 3 times. And unless you've got some secret galaxy-ending weapon hidden up your sleeve, I'd suggest you cut your losses and go home. Glexthor froze, his mandibles clicking uncertainly. For a moment it seemed like he might actually lash out again, but then his shoulders sagged, an oddly human gesture for a bug-like alien. The hegemony does not retreat, he muttered, his voice low and venomous. Well, you might want to start, Maya said, casually gesturing toward Mr. Nibbles, who had just rolled over in his mud puddle with all the grace of a beached whale. Because I can't promise he won't start wandering into your ships if you stick around. Klexthor's gaze darted nervously to the hippo, who let out a deep, guttural grunt that could have been a snore or a warning. The grand strategist twitched, then turned to the crowd of holographic alien dignitaries watching from the stands. We must deliberate, he said, his tone forced and clipped. This matter requires consideration. Take your time, Maya said, smirking. We'll be here. The holographic dignitaries flickered and vanished one by one, their murmurs fading into static. Klexthor lingered for a moment longer, glaring at Maya with a mix of hatred and disbelief, before his image disappeared as well. The arena began to disassemble itself once again, the alien panels collapsing and vanishing into thin air. Maya let out a long sigh and turned to Jerry, who was still pacing nervously by the truck. Well, that's probably the last we'll see of them. Jerry spun around, his face pale. You really think so? What if they come back with something worse? What if they— Jerry, Maya said, cutting him off. Relax. They're done. Trust me. How can you be so sure? Maya grinned, because deep down Clexy knows he's been beaten. He might not admit it yet, but after 3 losses in a row. He's not coming back anytime soon. Nobody likes being the galactic laughingstock. Jerry opened his mouth to argue, but before he could, the faint hum of engines filled the air. Maya turned her head just in time to see a small, sleek Drimban shuttle descend from the sky, landing a few meters away. The ship's hatch opened with a hiss, and a group of bug-like aliens emerged, their posture unusually timid. Uh-oh, Maya muttered. Looks like they forgot how to walk tall. The lead alien, smaller and less menacing than Klexthor, but no less bug-eyed, stepped forward and cleared its throat. Earth Representative Maya Krishnan? It asked, its voice high-pitched and hesitant. Yep, that's me, Maya said, raising an eyebrow. What do you want? Here to declare round 4? The alien fidgeted awkwardly. The, High Command of the Drimban hegemony wishes to negotiate a truce. Jerry's jaw dropped. A truce? Seriously? Shocker, Maya said, crossing her arms. Let me guess. They want to avoid any more embarrassing defeats? The alien coughed delicately. The High Command believes it would be unwise to continue hostilities. They propose an alliance instead. In exchange for a cessation of conflict, the hegemony will share its advanced technology with your species. An alliance, huh? Maya said, stroking her chin theatrically. What's the catch? No, catch, the alien said quickly. The High Command merely wishes to avoid further escalation, Maya smirked. Translation, they don't want their shiny toys getting wrecked by my murder hippo. The alien didn't deny it. Your champion has proven formidable. You bet he has, Maya said. Fine, tell your bosses we accept the truce. But if you break it, we're sending Nibbles straight to your capital. Deal? The alien nodded hastily. Deal. As the delegation scurried back to their shuttle, Jerry stared at Maya in disbelief. I can't believe it. You actually made them back down. Of course I did, Maya said, grinning. You don't mess with Earth, not when we've got Nibbles. The shuttle rose into the sky and vanished, leaving behind nothing but a faint hum and a newfound sense of peace. Maya turned to Mr. Nibbles, who was still lounging in his mud puddle, blissfully unaware of the intergalactic chaos he'd just prevented. "Well, buddy," she said, patting his massive side, "looks like you just saved the planet." Again. Mr. Nibbles grunted in response, his eyes half closed. For him, it was just another day in the mud. For the rest of the world, it was the day humanity learned that sometimes the most unexpected heroes come with 4 legs, massive jaws, and an unshakable bad attitude.